Hey everyone, this is Tired Goth, and this is the continuation Threat Intel 102, the negative trust and intuitive reasoning course. So this is not necessarily a free class, but it is an introduction. Message me at my contact information and we can get started there. So to capture, we were talking about meditations and how to clear the space in order to level energy and then measure frequencies and resonances from there. What you want to do when you're measuring any type of frequency measure, frequency range, if you want to get an idea of where these ranges are and where you sit within them, a good way to create, as I mentioned in one of the previous videos, to sage, to burn Palo Santo, to use crystals to sort of see where they reverberate, sort of like a calibration for and magnetic fields. So the energetic fields and the magnetic fields are kind of intended by one another. Energy fields exist everywhere, and magnetic fields are sort of responding to where the energy is, either in an attracted way or a repelled way. So there's attraction and repulsion, right? But the frequencies that seen here or witnessed here are where emotions, intellectual thoughts, and actions sort of work their way through and become, tangible from non-tangible circumstances or events as a starter. So suppose I'll give like grounded examples of how these things come to be, where you are talking with someone on the internet and it's like you can't see them, you don't know what it would feel like to be around them. You don't have a good tangible sense of them yet, right? Only based on what they're showing you, their pictures, which you can't even verify are real, their speech, which you can't even verify isn't coming from an external source. One such a lot of operate in, like, I guess you could say, communicative forums for sex work will actually not have the person ordered to a task be the person who is speaking through the email. They'll usually work in teams. And I think I've mentioned this before. There's also there's a buffer. There's like a lab kind of mindset for this type of thing where if a person is, for example, operating within a scam mindset, they won't be the only person to be delivering these messages. They'll have entire labs of people or entire groups of people who are all on the same page, all delivering similarly sculpted or crafted scripts to recite to people. And so would you be interested in me, or would you be interested in this, or da da da? And this is the type of thing you don't see online. You can't see the room full of people all saying the same thing to see if you'll pay them for it. And usually this is a love scam, this is a romance scam, or a fin scam, as they call it, a financial scam. But it's rooted in people's ability to bend your attraction and your attention to them. So this is the type of thing that we call luring, right? Now, a lure doesn't always take. So if you are a person who's just sitting on the internet and you're not sure of what to look out for lures, which are literally hooks, they're hooks that like stick into your subconscious and kind of reel you in, right? The way that we want to put this forward is a lure is always going to appeal to something that someone knows you like. So in a negative trust environment, your best defense in a threat model is to refuse to divulge what you like. Now, this is often seen as antisocial behavior, but keep in mind, the internet is not necessarily a place where you can be social with everybody. Because while you can make connections, and some people are so lucky to do so, you can get really hurt doing that without knowing which territory you're in. This, of course, ties in with tactics and strategy. The Art of War by Sun Tzu is the perfect example of how a situation can go from very safe to terribly wrong if the territory is not understood for what is on it, who is around, if it didn't capture, and whether or not the person who is observing this territory is actually going to be able to sustain themselves there. Now, why would you compare a social arena to a war? Well, considering the fact that what you are warring is your own subconscious connecting to things that could potentially be dangerous, you're actually accounting for threats that are completely in the dark. You are quite literally walking through the darkness, assessing what your body is telling you, right? So if your body starts to feel intuitive nudges like butterflies, or you feel this sort of sinking feeling while you're talking to someone, but you know they're not in front of you, so they're not an immediate threat, you may not understand what's happening to you. You may be like, oh, this must be what it feels like to fall in love, and it's not. This must be what it feels like to talk to someone new and connect with them. No, it's not. So how do you create a point of reference for these things, right? How often is it that we encounter something like that in broad daylight and know exactly what we're feeling, right? This is why we're creating sort of a map and a bridge here between the two realms, where there is natural, organic occurrence, and then there is influenced occurrence. And between these two things, there is the internet as its vector, okay? So the vector here is the place where these two things can meet in this particular context and circumstance. Now, a natural organic experience is like making a dating profile and saying, I'm going to put myself out there and see how it goes. And you actually meet someone who meets your standards, your criteria, you meet them, it goes great. The influenced, non-organic situation is more like a person catfishing, not only for romance, but for money. A person presenting themselves as a child when they are an adult in order to talk to children, which is not okay. Save anyone who is going through that as a young person. Let them know that's not okay, because no matter what they're saying, it's not okay. Okay. Another one is people using magic to catfish. This is specifically kept separately from catfishing as a rule, because catfishing is just like, oh, here's my illusion, let's see if you fall for it. Doing voodoo behind a catfishing picture is a perfect example where technology touches down with forced influence. Now, how do you prove that someone's doing voodoo on you? Well, sometimes some intuitives, some empaths will feel it. They will feel something being stitched into them. They will feel forced contractions in their body. They will feel something that starts vibrating or tingling, or sometimes they'll even feel pins. Now, while some people could say, oh, that's a psychosomatic reaction to nervousness or anxiety, no, it's actually not, because when a person is calm and in a state of non-flux in their emotions, and this is what's going on, there's something wrong. And it's not necessarily a cerebral issue. What it is a psychic issue. Okay, so there is no actual impulse that would lead a person to be feeling as if someone is threading something through their ribs to bind them to someone or something. This is one specific thing that needs to be addressed here. Okay, another thing is, if you feel pain or pins and needles in your feet, there's a very good chance that someone is using voodoo on you. If you feel that your feet fall asleep, more often than not, someone's using magic on you to understand what would make you do certain things. They are literally stepping into your energy as you to do that. Now, that is not actually a common use of holistic voodoo, and voodoo is a holistic practice. It's a medicine. It's literally an ancient medicine. So the people who are doing this are kind of like doctors who prescribe anything willy-nilly. And they're just like, so what if my Hippocratic oath is violated? Who cares? That's what the misuse of voodoo is in real terms, right? So with that real term comparison, you're actually looking at a bunch of very irresponsible healers who are practicing baneful magic in this particular context. Now, when a person practices baneful magic, what they're actually doing is bending the circumstances so that you can't look away. You cannot get your will into your own autonomy anymore. They are forcing your will into their hands. This this is the same as forcing someone to be held without will. This is the same as the hostage situation, if you really want to compare it. Now, how do you identify these things? Okay, if you feel like no matter how much you want to walk away from something, you are being cajoled back to it, there's a very good chance someone is trying to bend your chi to stay with them or doing binding magic as they're talking to you. And the way to break this is actually to cease contact. To cease contact and to revoke whatever it is that you already gave them by saying, I rebuke their presence in my life in the name of who I pray to, and I plea my freedom, and that's it. And you release it and you cut cords and you do meditations to release their energy. But here's the thing, proactively, if you go into a subconscious realm without your real identity, you are protected. Okay. Now, I understand that this is a dangerous tool to abuse, but that's why we're not abusing it. We are protecting ourselves. Not all obfuscation is meant for crime. Okay. Some obfuscation is meant to protect your aura. Because remember, some people are looking for people to target with their psychic tools, and these are baneful magicians. Okay. So if someone finds you and says, oh, this one is very bright, and this one is with a great future and potential, but they are 9 years old as I am witnessing them in these tarot cards, as I'm witnessing them online. So what they're going to do, this crazy magician is going to stalk you throughout your life to see when it is a prime time to harvest off of you. This is the type of stuff that we want to avoid, because in the subconscious realm, remember, the things that are connecting don't necessarily make sense. They are not sensible, viable, traceable connections until they are, right? Very much like dealing with electrons. Electrons, when observed under a microscope, are not visible the same way they were when the observation began. This is exactly what this is exactly like, forgive me for tripping on my words here. I might have a monitoring spirit in here. That's why, as I'm getting to the best part, it's almost impossible to understand what I'm saying. This is very much like the subconscious realm. The 2 points don't necessarily meet, but they exist. And we will just have to account for the negative space that's there until something manifests. So here we get into an interesting part of this conversation, because it is so difficult to pin down. How do you know if you're talking to someone who's safe to talk to? Energetically speaking, you are actually going to feel a stillness, right? Not a calm, not a fluffiness, not like it's not something overt, it's not something noticeable. It's actually the lack of presence of something. It's stillness. It's like a warm kind of low hum of stillness, as if you're just resonating with the quality of a person, right? This is something that you might be able to detect for yourself if you've been around a lot of people and have a lot of experience with people. But some people don't have that. Maybe they grew up in places where there weren't a lot of people around. They could be in more rural or suburban areas, um, instead of urban areas. Like in a sense, like if you're in an urban area and you have a lot of exposure to a lot of different types of personalities, this is a blessing, but it's also a curse in a sense, because you don't really have the same amount of privacy that you do. But intuitively speaking, you are actually at an advantage to hone your own understanding of self in order to compare it to points of reference that you can say, hey, this doesn't feel good if you're around more people in the future. Whereas in an urban environment, the energy is just pushed on you, and you kind of just have to figure out what it is and sort it out really quick. Sort of like, if you have a file full of documents and you drop the documents on the floor and they all spill out, and you have to pile them back together and organize them and figure out which goes where. That's kind of what it's like sorting out energy in an urban environment. Now, this is if you're outside. This is if you're in a tangible, real life realm. If you bring it to the subconscious level, it is actually exactly the same as those files and all those papers spilling all over the floor that it is the minute you engage with energies online. And this could be a frequent thing for YouTubers or people who have a lot of followers on Instagram or whatever. You just get a sense intuitively of what you're around. But what you want to ask yourself is this a scam, and is this a dangerous scam that will follow me, right? Because not all scammers just say, hey, let me see if this one's going to give me something. Some of them will chase you if they can't lure you, right? So now we're talking about predators. We're talking about people who will actively go into the subconscious realm and play on what you have there. If that didn't capture, these predators will go into the subconscious realm and see what is in your mind by observing you, and then play around there to capture your attention, to make sure that you feel like you are not able to escape it. And why do they do this? These types of people are hunting for a certain frequency resonance to see if it affects or impacts your productivity, your ability to work, your ability to function with them watching. And then something that also could be happening here, they could be trying to see what you do under stress in order to emulate it to assure their success, right? So another thing, if it's not literally trying to hop into your subconscious to get into your head and stress you out, they're also trying to copy the way you handle stress, because they, as their own energy and vessel, do not inherently have this information. And they don't because they haven't applied their experience to gain it, right? Especially honestly. So these types of things each have a type of purpose that they're serving for people who don't deserve them, right? The same way that someone could snake your credentials off of your computer and pretend to be you, other people are stepping into your energy to say, hey, I can do this too. But they can't. They need you to do that. So the way to protect your energy is actually to mask completely, as if you aren't you. You can have a real account, but primarily use fake accounts, because this will actually block people from immediately understanding who you are until they research it. And in the case that they do, in the case that they research it, they're already putting time and energy into trying to figure you out. So the more stumbling blocks you throw in front of people, the funnier it is to see what they do when they can't get anywhere. And that's actually the best way to filter people. It's like testing people for their verity, right? Here's another thing. In the realm of negative trust, it is actually sort of like a bizarro world of authenticity. You at your most authentic self are actually a liar. This is where it gets a little messy. The internet as a value system resonates more with deception than truth, so that the truth can unfold well for those who deserve it. And I say this because while there are trolls, there are also people who are trolling trolls. It's a very interesting dynamic that people have developed. But you can tell an authentic person based on how they treat you, even when they're lying. Okay? You can also tell who is lying and why. And you can also tell who is telling the truth under those lies. There is a certain air of conduct that you'll be able to pick up on after talking to enough people. But a lot of people who are actually very invasive and scary are going to be offering you business propositions and try to turn it into a sexual affair. They're going to try to lure you into a position where you cannot express yourself until you offer something sexual, until you offer something that is financial, until you offer some truth of yourself, and then they disappear. These are people you want to be very careful about, because if someone ghosts you in the first place, it could mean a couple of things, but if you get ghosted only after you give someone something of value to you, that's a spiritual attack, right? So if you give someone money and they disappear, cut your losses, because they did that to get you upset, to harvest your frequency. Okay. Another thing, if you gave them a piece of information about yourself that's very private and they ghosted, block them, run away. You don't have to leave your house to like escape them, but what you need to do is like make moves to make sure that they can't do anything with that, to again hook into your attention. The difference between how people have viewed witchcraft before and what it actually is today is just a continuous reinvented wheel of how to keep you focused on someone when you need to focus on other things to stabilize your energy and even raise your vibration to a higher frequency where you can reach other people. Now, everyone's going to follow a different creed and a different religion, but I feel like you may resonate a bit more soundly with religions that don't attack or seek vengeance, but rather give vengeance to their deities. And I say this because seeking vengeance means you have to expend energy to chase what hurt you, and you engage in warfare, right? However, if you realize that some creeds actually say, no, no, you need not move your legs. You need sit down and pray and return what it is that was sent to you with its best intention back so the lesson can be learned by the assailant. This, at its root, is a meditation in self-preservation. It's not just about the creed. In essence, it is about what it is that is serving you in your highest purpose, not only to protect yourself, but to protect the lives and the livelihoods of yourself and others, so that you don't fall into spiritual attacks, which will literally steal from you, harvest from you. Focus yourself and your intentions and the work you are meant to be doing in your purpose on people who are not a part of that journey with you. Now, when you're on the internet and you're networking, crucial ways to tell if you're in danger based on, some very viable points here. Like, for example, if you're dealing with someone who wants to scam you for insurance money, they're going to ask you stuff about your birthday. They're going to ask you stuff trying to give you gifts. They're going to link up with your family members on Facebook. They're going to do a whole lot of stuff. And, there's always a common factor with these types that are like hitmen. They all work in groups and they all seem to know each other in some like subcultural thing where they think that the world doesn't get them, and they all run around like they're perpetually 14-year-old kids wearing misfit shirts. Like, no one understands how deep I am. And it's like, is that maybe because you dug yourself in a hole and no one wants to go in it with you? Like, it's that kind of personality I've noticed that tends to be this like gloomy, like, woe is me, I'm romanticizing my own abusive tendencies to myself so other people will feel bad for me. Like, it's literally having sympathy for the proverbial devil here, right? And it's not so much like someone on a self-improvement journey and being like, this is hard. It's not this. It's more like like the personality type I'm describing of these people is consistent with, I am making my own problems and I want you to fix them for me so I can keep making problems. This, you don't want to fall for this. If you notice this being the loop 2 times, don't do it. Just don't engage, because these people need something that you cannot give them. It's not money. It's not your attention. It's therapy. Literally, they need therapy. That's all it is, okay? So if they can be redirected to a therapy line in your best judgment, go ahead. But at the end of the day, this is not something that you can resolve for them because they don't want to change their circumstances. But what they will do is sit on the internet and try to make it your problem. Okay. And then if you don't bite the whole like cool dude in the shadows persona, whether it's a woman or a man, it really does not matter. Oh, woe is me. Oh, woe is me. Oh, me. Oh, no. I didn't do a damn thing to fix this. I didn't try a single thing to resonate with other people and build myself a healthy life. No, no, that's going to be your problem now. No. No. Do not do that. I don't care if they're promising you the world. Don't engage with those types. Because at the end of the day, you're going to leave with a sinking feeling in your stomach like they just did something horrible to you once you got offline. And this is something that is consistent, okay? Also, these types will also present like they have everything going for them. I have this cool job. I have this going for me. I live in this kind of place. I'm doing this weekend. They will show off. They will give you nothing personable, but they will show off to lure you places. And what they're doing is they're trying to lure you there so that they can keep you stuck there. Some people don't make it home from the places that people show off online. Okay? I want you to realize that these things are all fish hooks with really nice snacks stuck on them, so that when you swim over from the subconscious realm that you were just in over there, and you're like, ooh, I was just looking for this. Could this be my big break? And then you bite that hook and you get dragged out of the water. Okay? You don't want to do that to yourself. You want to see why a person is showing you these things. You want to sit back and watch. Whenever they show you something appealing, reverse your initial reaction to it. When you want to say, oh, wow, can I be part of that? No, refuse it yourself until you know. And then when you feel safe, when you're sure it's okay, invite yourself. Ask if you can tag along or see if they invite you first. But if they're pushing and inviting you and saying, oh, it's such a good idea, but it's like it's not something that happens right away, it's good if it doesn't happen right away. It's bad if they're doing this on purpose to be like, yeah, you should totally come out, because there is something behind that. Okay. You know what happens to some of those situations, those people in those situations? They'll be lured out to a place after having been bullied to not like the place that they are safest in, just so they can end up out there and then they don't make it home. And I'm softening a lot of my language here to describe what happens in those homes, what is discovered in those homes, who is in those homes with them. If you just felt a sinking feeling in your gut while I was talking about that, that's your intuition picking up on what I'm talking about. And that is exactly the type of intuitive reasoning that I am here to show you. Things that people say, when they make your stomach drop, that's your body warning you. That's your body telling you. It's not you needing to go to the bathroom. It's not you being unsure of what this is. Your body knows. Your body remembers something, even crazier than anything else. Your body remembers something, possibly from a past life, that is trying to warn you, hey, remember this? Don't do that again. That is spiritual awareness, okay? Not to mention all of the people who came before you. Let's not neglect your bloodline here. All of the people who came before you, and I'm not sure if you believe in reincarnation, but particles do not just get destroyed or created. They were recycled, right? So let's say scientifically, we're all made of the same things that have been recycled through time over and over again. And all of the people who came before you to make you who you are today, side of your body telling you, do you remember this? Honor this. It might save your life, right? Your subconscious, your gray matter, is likely a connection to the entire universe of possibility. And your own ancestors are here, especially your beloved ancestors, those who carried you through time to get you here, right? They don't want you to disappear. They want to help you. So these inklings, these intuitions, these points of reference, these keys on the map, literally, are all telling you what it is that you can trust and not trust, as if you were walking through a forest and looking at trees and saying, are these berries I can eat, or are these the berries that make me sick? Right? Except while you're in a forest, you're also submersed in the subconscious as you're walking through this forest without your flashlight, without anything. There are only so many beacons that you will recognize as sources of protection and light as you go through this. But as you sojourn, as you carry on and go through this, you'll start to recognize things. Oh, hey, I remember I had berries like that from a tree once, and I was about to get sick, but I only ate one of them. So I took that as the hint and I ran away. But I remember that because I see it again. Those are the types of things, the points of references that take years for people individually to collect and then put together sometimes. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that as you are doing this, you're paying attention to what other people are saying. Not to buy it at face value, not to create social credit, but to hear what they're saying, to hear what they're really saying. What is the reason for these things? Why did these things happen the way that they did? And if you start to collect the real reasoning underneath it, it starts to sound a bit like a spiritual battle. It starts to resonate with things that are of God and then not of God. It begins to resonate with things that are inherent in their ambitions to either preserve the universe or harvest from it and sacrifice it. So it takes an interesting turn when you realize that some ambitions are not wholly tangible and not fully of the 3D, of the earth, of what it is that we can see and touch, right? It's not so obvious sometimes why these things occur. So, with respect to frequencies and where they resonate, sometimes in order to resonate at your highest frequency, you have to leave the majority of what you know beneath you. And you just need to be like, okay, so for now, I am not of this collective. And if I'm meant to return to that, I could. But if I'm meant to vibrate higher than them so that they follow me into a higher consciousness, why would I? Is rather the thought and the posit here. Because you still have a lot of people who don't understand that their frequency is who they meet. Their frequency is what they are able to have in life. Their frequency, their resonance, their ambition is what they collect in karma. So while these people, while all of Earth really is learning this, we sort of have to bear with and just conduct ourselves as we would to preserve ourselves, because without ourselves, we cannot have one another intact. So, with respect to more tips, tricks, and how to really identify threats, I have a few, and I'd like to share a couple of them with you, but for more, feel free to book me for a class because it is pertinent to, a lot of what people are going through, but let's not run out the tape here. So, three ways that you can tell, in addition to the other two that I mentioned, that someone is a threat. They're probably going to do something called playing 3D chess, where they have multiple accounts off of social forums and they'll present as one account and they'll present as a different account somewhere else, or possibly with the same name but have a different personality. And they may frequently catfish and then express themselves with more honesty on one or more other accounts where they're not quite identifiable as linked. Now, this sounds completely disconnected, discombobulated, and borderline schizophrenic, but hear me out. The reason why it's called 3D chess is because they're playing as different people on the same board with different placements, and they can only move certain ways in these placements. So what they'll do is they'll make, one social media account, they'll make another one here, they'll make another one there, and then they'll make a secondary one that doesn't even seem like them at all elsewhere and start talking about all the stuff that didn't work on the other social media platforms when they posted it. It's the safest way that they have developed to speak falsely ill or conduct scams on other people, right? This includes harvesting them for organs, getting them trafficked, getting them locked up on purpose by abusing the judicial system through crooked judiciaries. I'm not kidding, okay? Another way that you can tell that this is the type of thing that you could be worrying about is suddenly there will be, after maybe knowing a military personnel or someone moving into your building or something of that effect, there will be a change in your neighborhood that alludes to more people kind of just showing up, and you can't really tell what their situation is, but over the course of them living there, it gets weirder and weirder for you. And it's not a coincidence because it only started after they moved there. These are usually people who have been in the military went rogue and decided to either get involved in dealing drugs, get involved in dealing with their trauma by creating the trauma in the new neighborhood by like trafficking people, getting them hit for insurance money, um, doing a whole bunch of stuff that they think they have legal immunity from because in a sense they do. Robbing banks, you name it. There was a whole movie about that from the 70s, right? That guy with his trans wife when he was already married and had kids. This person was responsible for like falsely presenting himself as someone and like to one community and then like held up a bank and then got caught, and the whole thing was about him getting off scot-free while his partner didn't. So it's like these people believe that their immunity is going to save them so they can continue abusing people to take out their rage from having been turned into a military contracted killer. Okay, so yeah, this is what we're dealing with. We're actually talking about literal social control mechanisms that may or may not have been employed as an inevitability by our own US government or by our governments the same. We don't know. We don't know what really triggers this. It could be that they're not being paid enough and that's why they go off and do these types of things, right? And that's not the only example. There are entire foreign collections of bank robberies that have happened, and they were all military people, as it turns out. So, we need to focus on what the tells here usually are. If a person is in a situation where they are primarily focused on venting their rage and their disappointment with their lives, it might be time to kind of hone in on that as a reason to protect yourself from these people and to give them help, to give them the therapy that they need, or at least mandate that they do something about themselves instead of taking it out on people who want to kill people. And not to profile people, but who has worse problems than a person in the military, right? For a lot of reasons, for a lot of the responsibilities they're anticipated to handle. Military, police, you name it. People with grudges, right? Um, Another thing that I want to say here is the third tell is if you are talking to someone who has never grown up, and I don't mean like never got a job, never did anything like that, but like has literally been forced into regression due to abuse at home that's not being uncovered, you are talking to someone who is a potential threat to the rest of society if they're making no moves to change this. If they are happy and there's not a sense of discontentment with what's happening to them, and I mean like a sense of felt discontentment. You wouldn't be able to measure that for them. But if they don't acknowledge for themselves that they are unhappy with the situation, there's a chance that they could be a very big threat to society. They need to be given room to change. But at the same time, while you're dealing with them, if you suspect that you're talking to someone who is a threat to you or your children because they have not handled some very important, crucial developmental stages of their own you know journey to become an adult, it's probably a good idea to keep track of that and to inform others that that could be a problem if you start noticing that it is a problem. I'm not talking about people who still live at home. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who still live at the home of the people who abuse them and don't want help or don't know or don't want to ask for help. Like, it's one thing for them to come to you and say, I don't know how to ask for help because I feel trapped by what they did to me. Organized crime is often responsible for a lot of these situations. It's usually a tell that someone is connected to organized crime in the case that they feel stuck in their own home with their own family because of something that their family said, did, or caused for them. And it's usually an implication that starts young so they can weave their way into this person's life to make sure that they either get locked up, they get medicated to their death, or they get sacrificed some other way, because these people in organized crime do not actually care about whether or not this person lives or makes it out of that. in any way, shape, or form. They are hoping to get what this person leaves behind as if it's a video game, which is why they need the help. Okay. But if you are talking to this person and they are perfectly fine with everything that's happening, it could be a situation where you are actually becoming a new target. So just be careful. You don't want to deal with a narcissist. You don't want to deal with anybody who, again, is going to take your attention and focus it on them when you don't have the ability to do that safely without hurting yourself. So for more on intuitive reasoning, feel free to message me. This has been Tired Goth. Thank you for tuning into this series. A lot more that I wanted to say. A lot of these videos actually got cut off and deleted, but while I have a bit of free time, I wanted to put this together for you and give you an idea of the introductory stuff that I would be teaching you in a more in-depth course. So stay tuned for more content. Thanks so much for tuning in, and thank you for paying attention to the parallels I'm mentioning in my new book, which is very close to the date of release. So stay tuned, and thank you for being here. Love you guys.